All right, now in KZN, the flood victims there who were occupying an empty Transnet building have been evicted. They are among those whose homes were swept away. The movement Wokuzimelela has been helping the victims by providing support and getting lawyers involved. They are going head-to-head in court with Transnet today over the eviction from Montclair Lodge today. Our reporter Lethiwe Mdluli is following that story and she joins us now live. Well, Lethiwe, when I look at this case, it would seem that the government has actually abandoned those flood victims, but I wonder what has been the argument in court?
Well, Maseko, that's exactly the same sentiments that flood victims have. They are saying that they feel like the government has abandoned them. But right now, some good news for some of those victims, as court proceedings have just concluded here at the High Court. And some of those victims that were evicted on Monday can go back to the lodge. The matter was heard before a judge. And I was speaking to an attorney representing the victims, and she was sharing that right now there is no court date as to when this matter will be heard again, but the outcome from these proceedings was that the victims will be able to go back to court until the matter is concluded at the Constitutional Court, because the lawyers representing the victims did write to the Constitutional Court. There's an application there, and until that outcome until there's an outcome there, then the victims will be able to go back to the lodge. I spoke to them earlier, and they were saying that the reason why they occupied that building was because they feel as if the shelters that have been provided by the Ethekwini municipality are not safe. They are overcrowded, and they are very worried about the illnesses that might occur while they are living there. And on Monday, when they were evicted from the lodge, when they tried to go back to those shelters, they were chased away. They had to spend about 2 nights outside. There were children that were also sleeping outside. So it's a very sad situation that we're seeing unfolding here in Durban. And there's no clear plan, Maseko, as to exactly what is going to happen to these victims, because so far only 800 temporary housing units have been built, and it's been 4 months since the floods occurred. And it doesn't seem like the government does have a plan in place as to when these victims will be moved and provided with housing. But while I was speaking earlier to the attorney that is representing the victims, Mbali, this is what she had to say.
I received instructions that my clients have now no other alternative. The living conditions for the occupants in the halls are so inhumane that now basically they are now taking them to Montclair Hall. When I received the instructions, I immediately also rushed to the hall because, this organization is trying to do things in a different manner. They are trying to show the people that we are fighting for you, but we are also respecting the law. I arrived there. I spoke to a representative from Transnet. So from the get-go, the organization and ourselves have been amicable to actually having some form of discussions and settlements. We then engaged council. We've started with talks. Undertakings were made, some were not done. To the point whereby we then received this application for an interim order that the occupants must be evicted from the premises. We then opposed that in motion, which was denied here in this High Court. On that same day, we then raised our grievances straight to the Constitutional Court, where we made an application granting leave to appeal so that anything else transpiring after that, we are able to hold. But our main priority was that the occupants remained in occupation. So all of that has transpired back and forth, I think, for the past 2 weeks, with Mtsinzi assisting us greatly. Until we have received the dates today, whereby now we are then informed that Transnet and the departments are now wanting to sit down and actually negotiate a way forward. Today, it was adjourned sine die, which means we do not have a return date as yet, because we do have a pending matter in the Constitutional Court. Because we also want to set an example whereby flood victims should never have to go what these flood victims went through. Yeah. Flood victims should not ever have to think that the courts will not protect them. The court is meant to protect them. Yeah. So we're still awaiting that outcome from the Constitutional Court judgment. But as it is, these victims will be able to go back to the lodge, mainly the mothers and the children, and be able to get shelter while we're still resolving all these matters in litigation.
And Lethiwe, I couldn't help but notice that you mentioned that only some of the victims would be allowed to go back to that particular building. I think you said by Monday. Why only some?
Well, right now, what the movement that is helping these victims has said to us is that only mothers and women will be prioritized, and they are hoping that when the matter does move further, they will be able to accommodate more. But right now, children and mothers will be the main priority, mainly because the building can only take in so many flood victims. And they are saying that because of the safety issues around these shelters, they are just prioritizing women and children for now.
And very quickly, Lethiwe, I don't know if I probably missed it. What did Transnet lawyers say? How did they explain or try to explain away the decision to evict these people in the first place?
Well, Masako, unfortunately, the session for today was closed, so we were not able to be inside the court while there were discussions between the two lawyers. But while I was speaking to the attorney that is representing the victims, she did say that the lawyers from Transnet did not inform them of the eviction initially, which is why they've been coming to court and trying to fight this for the past 2 weeks. On Monday, when the victims were eventually evicted, Bali did say that they were not instructed about this, which is why that they took it upon themselves to fight this matter urgently. And of course, today, the good news is some of those victims will be able to go back until the Constitutional Court actually has a date when these two lawyers representing the company and also representing the victims can go back and hear what they will be doing moving on. We're also going to be speaking to the government as well, just finding out exactly what is the plan, because the people that are responsible for placing these people is the government. Yesterday, when they were in a meeting with the committee that is overlooking the matter of the flood victims, the Department of Social Development did not actually share when these people will be moved. But what they did share, Maseko, was that they are hoping that these shelters in Durban will be closed by December. 6,000 people still remain in the shelters, and only 800 TRUs have been built so far. So we will be continuing with this matter, just finding out exactly what is going to be happening moving forward. And for those people that won't be able to go back to the lodge, they will be remaining in shelters. And they are saying that the matter is still very dire for them because it's not safe, it's overcrowded, and they are afraid of illnesses.
All right, Lethiwe Mdluli with that report coming to us live from Durban.